Start streaming. Yes. Okay. Here we go. Event is
Sweet.
starting. The event is starting. I can't actually know the exact moment that it starts, though. Oh, here it is. I think we're live. Okay, Ahren. Stop just repeatedly saying the F word again and again and again, dude. We're live now.
Deal.
Hello, everybody. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. Welcome to my live stream. Sorry it started a little bit late. As you can see, I am not at home. If you don't recognize where I am now, you don't watch Rotor Riot. This is the Rotor Riot studio. I'm in Orlando this week shooting episodes with Rotor Riot, which I do every once in a while. And that's also why the stream is starting late, for which I apologize. But I had to get set up with my laptop, and it's not my usual setup. So it's good to see you guys. It's good to be here. Um, and as you can tell from the title and from the fact that I hope that you hear some noise in the background, I have a guest with me today. Ahren Ciotti is back. He's only going to be on audio because, again, this is it's not my normal studio. I didn't want to try and challenge myself to technical things that might go wrong. So, Ahren, thank you for being here with us again. Why don't you say hello, and we'll see how your level is on the stream.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me again. Had such a blast last Monday that yeah, let's do it again. Let's talk more micros.
Yeah, and that is exactly why I asked you to come back. And by the way, in the chat, if you guys would let me know, like I can't monitor the volume like I can when I'm at home. So if everybody's volume is okay, if Aaron's volume is okay, then we're just going to do the chat. And the reason that I wanted you to come back is because the stream we did on Monday night I was such a good stream. Like there were so many questions about micros, there was so much interest, and I thought it would be a good idea to come back and let the Europeans have a shot at you, and also just do 2 more hours, or maybe 1 hour. We'll see how long we go, but just do some more of this.
Awesome. Yeah, love it. Look at that potato riot shirt.
This is my
Awesome.
potato riot shirt. Yeah, this is not a rotor riot. This is they should make this shirt. People have asked me where to get it. So we are gonna be taking questions and doing a Q&A. And since Ahren is here and Ahren really specializes in micros, we are gonna try and stay focused on micros. Of course, we'll take as many questions as we can, and we'll always, of course, pay attention to the super chats as well. If you would like to make sure your question gets noticed, then one way to do that is to hit the $ down below on the chat, and that means you give a super chat. In fact, I should make sure to pull the super chats out into a separate window here so I can pop out chat and hang on. Where's my super chats? Viewer activity. There we go. That's a way to make sure we get to your question. Regardless, we try to answer as many questions as we can, whether they come from super chat or not. And I should also probably be looking in the Discord at my patrons. Oh, see, so unprepared today. Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure I get the live stream chat up in the Discord. And okay, now we're ready to go. Now we're ready to go. Hello, everybody in the chat. Hello, everybody there. Top Gun of FPV. Ciotti's there in the chat as well. He's going to be answering questions live and in the chat. Um, and as a way of, and Ciotti, you didn't know I was going to do this, but as a way of saying thank you, just because how much I appreciate your time and how much I appreciate you coming on, all of the super chats from this stream will go to Ciotti. So if you guys want to,
Hey,
yeah, I know. So however
very
much
cool.
we get donated in this stream, I'll go ahead and throw that his way. I was going to say I'd split it with him 50-50, but then I was like, I didn't give him anything for the last stream. So all the super chats, if you guys appreciate the stuff he did on Monday, if you want to just show him some appreciation for what he's got here today, those super chats are going to go to him. So let's. Why didn't they let you use the studio? Well, I am using the studio. What are you talking about? This is the studio. This is the Rotor Riot studio. It's one of them anyway. Let's see what we've got um, in terms of questions. Let's see. Chamber in the Discord asks, I hear that the T-Motor 30, the 349, he typed 3419, but I think he means 349, has a lot of jello. What would you do about jello on the T-Motor 349? He says, I just got a Diatone 3. Oh, it's the same question. He typed it twice. So let's start off there. Ciotti, jello on the Diatone 349, and in general, jello is kind of a big problem on micros in general, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. There aren't many motors that will produce jello-free split camera footage, but they're coming. They seem to be coming. Um, Hopefully that iFlight motor is going to be good that we were talking about last time. I have a prototype motor here that's been amazing. Tommy's Brat motors were the first ones to kind of get that done, but they're a little bit fragile. So I'm really excited, and a bunch of us are really excited about this new crop of motors that are coming.
So your approach to vibration and jello in micros is to use smooth motors, not too coggy motors. We talked about some of that in the last stream. If somebody has bought a ready to fly like the 349, presumably they don't want to swap out the motors. How could they make the best out of a bad situation?
Oh man. Thanks for the impossible question,
I
Joshua.
mean, we gotta ask it, right? Is it just basically, is there anything they can do beyond that? Balance. Somebody in the chat suggested balance props. Are we going to be balancing 3-inch props? Is that even a thing?
I've done it. It's a complete nightmare, and then it makes you fly like a pansy because you don't want to break the props that you just
Right.
spent 10 minutes balancing. Um, that's the other problem. I mean, that's a great comment. The micro props are not well balanced. I assume that they're harder to balance because if you got like a little bit of extra mold release on one side, or it's going to throw it off a lot more than a bigger prop. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, notchy motors and imbalanced props are like the two things that make getting clean footage from the split cameras, which have problems with jello,
Right.
really difficult. So
Now
there's
you're
only like one or two props in each size that I'll run because of balance problems, and then motors. I mean, if a motor's too notchy, I just don't run it.
well. That's a really good point. Are there some props that you found that are particular? Because you could certainly swap the props on a ready to fly. What are the best sort of 3-inch props that you like to run?
Sure. So I'll actually run the gambit real quick. 2 inch, 2.5, 3. Best balanced, best performing. And I'll preface this with these are more freestyle props. I look for a lower pitch prop for better throttle resolution. But 2 inch, the Ahren 4 blades and the Blur 3 blades are the best that I've found in terms of balance. 2.5 inch, the Emax. Oh God, I forget what they're
Avon.
called, but it's yeah, the Avon 2.5 inch. That's the best one I've found. And then for 3 inch, there's actually a couple, but the GemFan 3028s are really the best all rounders. The Avans are also really good. I don't know what it is. Emax makes a really well balanced
I
micro
agree.
prop.
That's a really high quality prop.
Yeah, they're a little fragile though. The Emaxes. I like the GemFans a little bit better.
That's true. I agree. I think for the Avons, if you want like a really good prop that you'll pay a little bit more for, and then it's a little fragile, but while it's flying, it flies great. That's like
Absolutely.
that one take. Um, so sorry. Did you get all the way up through the 3 inches? I don't want to cut you off.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, nope. Those are my favorites. GemFan 3028 and those Avans. I run the GemFan 3028s almost exclusively on 3 inch rigs at this point. They're also really cool because they have a little setup where they'll work with T-mount and they'll also work with M5 nut. So it kind of helps me to be able to run those on both to compare motors.
Interesting. Skadoosh asks in the chat, does a coggy motor stay coggy after the magnetic field is introduced? And David, that is a very interesting question because the cogginess of the motor is the interaction of the magnets with the stator poles, and the magnets want to just settle into like the lowest energy position. Once the ESC starts driving current through the motor, the pole itself has a magnetic field that is used to drive the motor. And in theory, if you had a perfect ESC, it could perfectly smoothly drive the motor, right? But the reality is that the ESCs are not perfect. And what we find practically is what I think we find practically, maybe we could ask a guy like Ryan Harrell, who has a lot of experience with motors and ESCs, to weigh in some more on this. But in my experience, the coggy motors are coggy because they have really high powered magnets. And those motors tend to be very powerful, but a little bit rougher, just because the ESC is just not driving it perfectly. Whereas the smooth motors, the not coggy motors, tend to have weaker magnets, and the ESC can be a little bit imperfect, and the motor doesn't kind of jam or stutter as much. What do you think of that, Ahren? Do you agree or disagree?
I've never I actually learned something today. We talked about it briefly on last week's stream, but it never really clicked in my head that a different ESC might be able to do that. I've never seen it. I mean, I've run a number of different ESCs, and I've never noticed anything like that. I've run a number of different coggy motors and kind of just waited for one of them to work better than the other, but none of them have really worked.
We have an unexpected. I knew this was going to happen.
Message.
We have what? You got a message from me?
No.
We got an unexpected guest, Corey Tapp.
Hey, Drew.
Here. What's up, buddy?
I had to jump in on your.
You want to jump in on my live stream?
I had
Anybody
to.
want to ask Corey a question?
They don't.
Now is the time.
I don't have good answers.
Yeah, you don't know what to say. I got Aaron Ciotti here in my earbuds, so say hi to him too. While we're looking for some questions for Cricket, I'm gonna hit some super chats, and then Cricket, keep an eye up here on the regular chat and see what people are asking. So let me get these super chats out of the way while you guys ask some questions for Cricket. Keith Ratcliffe, thanks for $5. What causes onboard audio recording interference? Keith, you're recording audio on board the quad, or are you getting audio from the quad to your earpiece and you're getting crackles and stuff? The answer to that one is the same thing that causes your video breakup causes crackles in the audio. It's the same thing. I don't think there's any way around that. Alexander Morales, thanks for $5. Can you run head tracking with the DJI digital system? No, Alexander, I do not think the DJI system supports head tracking at all. Riz117, thanks for $2. Best motor for a 6S Marmot. You suggested the Zing 22.8 2150 kV. I would not argue with you about that. The 2150 kV on 6S, I would want to run that with a little bit of a throttle limit, but 1750 would be perfect. 2150 would be rip snorting, but probably kill your batteries.
Scott knows it all, guys.
You got any questions down here? People asking you any questions?
Just a couple.
How to go backwards?
Very carefully.
What if somebody wanted to start learning to fly backwards? They're not going to start doing tower gaps. How can they start flying backwards? What should be the first thing they should do?
Pick a spot that's open with maybe 2 trees that are a good space apart and just practice going through those backwards. Very short distances, 20 feet, 30 foot tops. Just do short ones. Once you start getting comfortable from getting into that blocked in motion of going backwards, then start doing it longer and longer and longer. But start short.
Yeah.
Have 2 objects that you can keep track of while you keep doing.
Like on the side?
Like on the side. If you want to see yourself, you want to see the 2 as you're going towards them. And as you rotate backwards, you want to see yourself going past them in front of you. So you'll see him in front of you going forward. When you go backwards, you'll see him coming by you in front of you as well.
Interesting.
He'll tell you how to do it better than me.
No.
I'm going to let you guys get back to your chat.
All right, thanks for jumping in.
See you guys.
What I would do if I wanted to start learning to fly backwards is I like to have like a long straight fence. That way, when you turn backwards, you got this sight line of the fence where you are relative to the fence. And you can start going backwards, but the fence lets you keep your altitude. The problem I have with going backwards is when I pitch back, I go down and I tank into the ground, right? But by having something next to you to index off of as you go, you can keep your altitude. That's what I think.
I'll give you the Ciotti secret how I learned, Josh.
How'd you learn to go backwards, Ciotti?
Tell us. Tiny whoops in hallways. You run down to the end of the hallway, pitch back, and then you just do it over and over and over again, and balance the throttle to come backwards down the hallway. You can practice all night, every night.
Yeah, when you're going forward, you have a visual reference for your altitude. When you're going backwards, you're pitched up and you're looking at the sky. It's a lot harder to have that visual reference. But if you're in a hallway, then of course you have the visual reference. Yeah, it's almost easier to do backwards stuff if you're underneath something, so you can kind of see what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. That bridge spot that I was telling you about last week, that was a good practice spot for it as well.
Yeah, and getting back to today's theme of micros are a great way to practice learning fundamental skills without the price penalty of crashing a full 5-inch. That was actually something that I think, and it just reminded me, Nick Burns was commenting on that, and he mentioned that he wished we had hit that point more in the previous live stream. That even if you love flying 5 inches, micros are a really valuable training tool for learning some of those fundamental skills.
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely found that. I started flying at the same time as a bunch of other guys, and as I kind of progressed, a few of them were like, "Man, how are you learning so quick?" And it's like, look, I'm not afraid to crash. I can fly absolutely anywhere. Batteries are cheap, and yeah, it really worked well for me. And in my first like year of flying, I really progressed a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Just getting a couple more of these super chats out of the way before we get back to their other questions. Redbeard the pilot, thanks for $5. Looking to get a dedicated buddy box transmitter for my micros and my Acroview. What are your thoughts between the X9 Lite, X Lite Pro, and the QX7? I mean, the X9 Lite is about $70 to $90 depending on where you buy it. It's a really solid radio for that price and has a lot of capabilities. If you're focused on Buddy Box, I would want to be the fact that the X9 Lite runs the Access protocol doesn't really matter so much to you. Um, I mean, it has the Buddy Box, the standard plug-in Buddy Box output, I would assume. So I mean, the X9 Lite wouldn't be bad. It's a good quality radio for the price. Even a QX7 is going to run you 110 bucks and be a little more expensive than an X9 Lite. So as far as the X Lite Pro goes, I think you really got to want that form factor. Does the X Lite Pro has a wireless buddy box? I'm not 100% sure the X Lite Pro actually has wired buddy box capability. I think I remember somebody complaining and being really annoyed that they had taken that out. So I think the X Lite Pro would be off your list. I think I would lean to the X9 Lite there since your focus is mostly on buddy box use. The thing to keep in mind though is that the X Lite Pro does not support D8 protocol without an external module to plug into it. So if you have a bunch of micros with D8 receivers in them, the X9 Lite wouldn't work with those unless you get an external module. Yeah, just jump in anytime, Ciotti, if you have additional stuff to add as I answer these questions.
I'm a QX7 guy through and through. For $100, you just can't touch it.
Yeah, yeah, it's especially the form factor. Some people really prefer the wider form factor.
Yeah, that's for me. That's really it. I got big long piano player fingers. I've been told.
Yeah, yeah. Bill Revenaugh in the chat wants to know how the heck do you even balance a 3-blade prop? Like I guess they're like if you give me a 10-inch prop, like it's kind of easy to balance, but I mean, how would you even center it up for balancing, right?
A piece of solder. Unfortunately, it's so there's no nice magnetic bearing setup balancer that'll work with the T-mount props. So I would literally sit there with a piece of solder and hold that as level as I could and just bump the prop with my finger
Mm.
and like get a rough balance. It would
Oh,
definitely work, but I mean it was nowhere near perfect and it
you
was
could.
just infuriating.
It seems like dynamic balancing might be the way to go there, where you just literally spin it on a motor and then like just trial and error, I guess. But even that's
Yeah,
taking into account the balance of the motor bell. You'll be balancing the motor bell
right.
and the motor, and then that's a whole other thing.
And it kind of goes downhill, right? The micro props are hard to balance. Well, I'm assuming the micro motors are also very hard to balance. You put the tiniest little bit of mud on the one spot, it's going to make a huge
Yeah.
difference. So
Well,
yeah, balance is definitely a problem with micros for sure.
what about like a clean dirty system like the Acrobrat? I mean, the whole point of the Acrobrat was to get smooth jello-free video. And in case anybody out there doesn't know, it has the motors are separated from the main body by some rubber vibration isolating gummies. They call it the clean plate, dirty plate system. How does that work on the Acrobrat? Does it work?
Definitely, yeah. The big complaint about the Acrobrat is weight. Well, the weight is specifically because of that clean dirty system, and in terms of a micro that can produce good jello-free footage, there's just no competition. And so when you build a micro and it's absolutely fresh, motors are fresh, props are fresh, everything is clean, you can get jello-free footage for a little bit. But as soon as you start crashing, as soon as things start working in, that's when it really becomes difficult and you end up kind of chasing the dragon on that. Whereas with the Acrobrat frame, it has everything going for it to try to get that jello-free footage, and I've yet to find one that can really do it anywhere near as good. So
Yeah.
it's really, really impressive.
Yeah. Super Sigma in the chat asks, can a bridge in soldering ruin the entire quad build? Yes, it can, Super Sigma. If you bridge VBAT to somewhere VBAT isn't supposed to go, you can smoke your whole flight controller. In theory, you could even smoke your ESCs if you were to, but that seems less likely. It is possible. Hope that didn't happen to you. A couple more super chats to get out of the way. As a reminder, as a thank you to Ciotti for coming on with the live streams. Just everybody was so appreciative and so just seemed to really love the fact that he was giving out this information. All the super chats from this live stream are going straight to Ciotti. So if you normally contribute to me, or if you're a patron and you're like, I got him on Patreon, if you want to throw a couple bucks Ciotti's way as a thank you for being here, all the super chats are going to him. So if you hate me and you're like, screw that guy, I'm never giving him money, well, today they're going to Seattle. So thank you. Thomas Winningham, thank you for $5. How can I figure out which screws to use? Is there anywhere to source these tiny screws? Are there no standards? Well, standards, I don't know, Thomas, but you can get M3. I have an M3 screw assortment. I usually buy it off of Amazon. I have M3 button head and M3 cap head screws. And then I have M2.5 screws, which are used more on micros and sometimes to hold the cameras on. And that pretty much is everything I can think of that you typically need. I don't know about M1. What takes an M1 screw? Never heard of anything.
I've never seen an M1.
Yeah, I mean they exist. But I would go if you're in a place where Amazon is convenient for you, you can find them on Amazon. You can probably find them also on Banggood, although the quality may be a little lower. In terms of the metal, maybe. But yeah, M3 cap head, M3 button head, and M2.5 assortment. They go from like 6 millimeters up to like 20 millimeters, and that's almost everything you could need. Here's one for you.
Rotorite store has a pretty good selection of M2 as well. M2 is tough to find.
M2 is tough to find. Yeah. Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. I said M2.5. M2 is the one that go in the cameras. There are a few things that take a 2.5. I think. What takes a 2.5?
Unfortunately, yeah, they're a pain.
That one's less common.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. M2 is the one you should get. M3 and M2. M2.5 you probably don't need.
In the micro accessory section on the Rotorite site, there's a whole M2 hardware part of there, and there's some really good stuff in there. M2 hardware is really, if you're going to dive into micros, get a set of M2 hardware, because it's just, you got to really save every millimeter.
Yeah.
Especially the way that you mount your stacks. So it's really nice to just have M2 by 6, M2 by 8, M2 by 10, M2 by 25.
I'm frustrated with the fact that they typically only come in 2 millimeter increments. Especially, I don't know about micros because I don't build micros a lot. Although I'm going to be getting more into that hopefully. But even when just building like a slam deck frame, going from 1 millimeter, from 2 millimeters to 4 millimeters, you're like, well, I only needed 1 millimeter. I wish somebody would make standoffs in 1 millimeter increments. Daniel Robin.
Luckily,
oh yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say T-Motor ships all their motors with M2 by 7s, which is really nice. Which I hoard those for that exact reason.
Yeah. The odd sizes are so hard to get. The motor screws, 7 millimeter. If you have a 5 millimeter bottom plate, a 7 millimeter motor screw is perfect. And you got 8 millimeters, and sometimes those stick up through and damage your motors. So, Daniel Robinson wants to know: can you take the parts off a 5-inch build and put them on a micro build as long as they will fit? What do you think of that question, Ciotti?
I can't think of any that would fit, but I mean, if they do fit, sure, it's going to be extremely underpropped. In theory, I mean, in theory, if the motors are well matched to a 5-inch prop, they're not going to be well matched for a 3-inch prop.
And that's the thing. You can't just take a 2306 motor and put a 3-inch prop on it and expect it to work.
Although it would be an interesting experiment.
I mean, I've broken some 5-inch props to the point where they kind of were 3-inch props. It would be an interesting. Could you even get it off the ground? But even if you did, it wouldn't be optimal. The the size of the motor, the weight of the build, and the RPM or kV of the motor are just not going to be right. So.
Yeah, the kV is going to be way too low. You'd have to run it on 10s to get enough RPM out of it.
Well, now we're talking. Cement Kid gives $5. Thank you, Cement Kid, for $5. What would cause telemetry to show up in the Taranis telemetry page, but not on the page to change PIDs or VTX? Cement Kid, there have been some issues people are telling me about with the Betaflight Lewis script, where some of the pages populate and others don't. Here's what you can know though. If any of the pages of the Lewis script populate, then your telemetry is working. It's an issue with the Lewis script itself. You can try downloading the latest version of the Lewis script. You could try reloading the Lewis script on your radio. You could try updating to a new version of OpenTX. Those are the things you should be trying to do. But if any of the pages of the Lewis script populate, your quad is working correctly, your receiver is working correctly. Thank you for $4. What wants to know long range build recommendations. I don't have a big a list of long range part recommendations for you. But if you want to, you can go to rotorbuilds.com, and that is a website that people post their parts list for their builds. And you can start looking, you can sort by 7-inch props, 8-inch props, and that can start sort of moving you in a direction to see what other people are doing. And that's how I always research new builds. MC's Creations, thanks for 5 Brazilian reais. Just remember, change your props to have jello-free video. Boy, I can't tell you how many times I've ruined a great freestyle run by a look at my props and go, yeah, they're okay. And then I fly and it turns out I have tons of jello. So yeah, you definitely want to be on new props. Ciotti, this one's for you because since you're getting the super chats, I'm going to duck this question and let you take the hit. Thank you, $4 from What How, who says, Mr. Steele versus Ladrib, mud wrestling match, who wins? This is the kind of question that I would only answer because it's a super chat. Mr. Steele versus Ladrib in a mud wrestling match, who wins? Ciotti FTV, going on record.
Yeah. Great. So I'll play the geography card and say, well, Steele lives closer to me, so I better say he's going to win. But I've also become better friends with Steele since moving here to Atlanta. So, yeah, I mean, that guy is shredded. So I would have to go with Steele. I love you, Drew, but I think
Drew's got weight on him. I feel like Drew does have weight on Steele, but I've threatened to punch Drew before just for fun, and he's won. So I feel like Steele is in pretty good shape, I have to say. He's rock climbing.
Yeah, and he's been doing some crazy stuff with his diet lately too, eating really good. And yeah, if you look at the guy's Instagram stories, it's like, whoa, okay. I wish I was still in my 20s.
I think the real winner, if Steele were to, I mean, I'm assuming it would be topless. They'd be like wearing like bikini shorts. So why would you have a mud wrestling match if you weren't going to put people in a bikini? I think the real winner would be all of us.
And down we go. Agreed.
Now I'm just trying not to picture it. Okay, let's move on. Thank you, Bill Revnaugh. I hope you feel like you got your, thank you, What How. I hope you feel like you got your $4 worth out of that. Chamber in the Discord says Drew would do better in Jello. I don't know why you really thought this through to the point where you think Drew would do better in Jello, but Steele would do better in mud. But we're moving on. Okay.
Drew would do better in.
No, we're moving on. We're moving on. Okay. Let's see here. Looking for questions. No, everybody's just got a good one. Let's see. Here we go. Shikazi Chef says, my motors are new and they get hot pretty fast. Anything I can do to fix it in the PID tuning? Shikazi Chef, hot motors, the first thing you got to figure out with hot motors is, are they hot because of a mechanical problem with the motor, or are they hot because of your tune? Okay. A mechanical problem with the motor could mean what? The most common thing is that your motor screw is too long, your screw has come through and is touching the windings, and the electricity is flowing through the screw, through the frame. It makes the motor super hot. Another thing could be if your bell was damaged and your bell was somehow getting continuity to the winding, that could cause it. A mechanical problem will not be affected by the PIDs. So the first thing you might try is set your D gain to 0. And if the motors are still hot, then it's not your PIDs that are causing it. Now, why set D gain to 0? On the tuning side, the D gain being too high or not enough filtering, these are things that can cause hot motors on the tuning side. So by setting D gain to 0, we kind of take that out of the equation. If you set your D gain to 0 and the motors cool down, then you know it's your PIDs, your filtering, or too much vibration. So those are some directions to go with that question. What do you do, Ahren? What do you do? Because I hear people say I got a micro and it's got hot motors, and it seems almost like it's more common on micros than it is on bigger quads. How do you approach hot motors with a micro quad?
I take them off. Put something else on.
just swap the motors, just the heck with it. And that is oftentimes my approach. If I have hardware that's pissing me off, I just throw it out and I try something else. And I always say that's not fair because that's a privilege of being a YouTuber. A lot of people, they spend whatever on a set of motors, they can't really afford to just throw them out. But with micros, you're spending a lot less. Maybe you're slightly more able to afford to do that, I guess.
Well, not to mention that for me, at least, with so we go back to Nachi motors, right? So this is what happens to me with Nachi motors. You'll sure, I spent $40 on a set of motors, right? Put them on, they get hot. I'll do a little bit. I'll drop P's down. I'll drop D's down a little bit.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't immediately kind of come around, they just come off. And my thought process is it's hopeless. There's nothing I'm going to be able to do. I'm just going to waste my time. And it's going to be cheaper for me in the long run to just take them off, sell them on Marketplace, and try something else.
Pass your problem on to someone else is what you're saying.
Exactly. Very important.
Drew has just joined.
I got the notification.
You clicked
I got
that
the
bell.
notification.
Wow.
Well, I didn't just click the notification. I came all the way here.
All the way here. While Drew, if anybody in the chat has a question for Drew, go ahead. Now is the time to get it in. Drew, the question that people were asking was, I don't know if you were watching the stream.
No.
And this was a super chat, so I'm kind of obligated to answer it.
Okay.
Who would win in a mud wrestling match, you or Steel?
Steel.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, he's stronger. He's like a rock climber and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's shredded.
And normally I'd say the advantage I'd have over other people. Wait, he's short actually.
He's short. You outweigh him.
I always do think of him as tall.
You outweigh him.
Because I was going to say I don't even. Probably the only advantage I got is I got some reach. But he's stronger. He's
strong.
Yeah, he could probably.
He doesn't wrestle though. Does he wrestle? I mean,
he's just ripped,
Yeah, but a guy who knows how to wrestle is going to be able to use his strength a lot more effectively.
I also don't know how to wrestle.
We do.
Oh. Well,
at least not that type of wrestling.
You're boned, dude. Let's see here. What do we got? Best most. Ben Jacobs, Ciotti, wants to know best motor for a 3-inch racer. Ben Jacobs, Ciotti. What do you think?
Wow, for 3-inch
What's
racer,
the best motor for a 3-inch racer?
Hang on, Ciotti.
Oh.
Go ahead, Ciotti.
I don't know much about racing stuff, but my assumption is going to be a 1408. They make horrendous amounts of power. I really gear all my micro stuff towards freestyle, so I look for less powerful, more throttle resolution, smoother kind of motors. But I know the 1408s I've run 3 different 1408s, and they've made mega power. So I think it would be there. Maybe the I would also maybe try the Emax 1606. That's a motor that also makes horrendous power, and it can turn. It can really turn a high-pitched 3-inch prop like it's nothing.
Yeah, we've talked in the previous stream about how you don't think the Emax 1606 is a great motor for 4-inch, but you think it might be pretty good for 3-inch.
Yeah, 3-inch high-pitched props. It's like warp drive. It's absolutely ridiculous. The power is hysterical.
Let's see here. We got a couple questions coming in for Drew.
How does this work?
What do you mean?
Wow, these are
How does what
fancy.
work?
Bose
Sound Sport.
Ciotti knows so much about micros. I just like listening to him talk.
Yeah, we are. That's why I'm giving all the super chats from this stream to him.
I saw a super chat. Cement Kid wanted to know if he could fit a turtle or a split in the driblet frame, and I've not done it personally, but it's on my list of things to do. I'm pretty sure you could fit one of the single boards. So I'm pretty sure you could fit one of like the 20 by 20 single board HD things in there, but probably the double board would be tight with the flight controller and the ESC stack.
Redbeard the pilot gives $5 and wants to know whether you would prefer to fight steel in Jello or mud.
Jello, because then when we get tired out, we can just like relax and just eat a
Eat
little
Jell-O.
bit, just feed each other Jello.
Oh my god.
You know.
ZD Kama, thanks for $5. After Ciotti, this is probably more for you, but after motor size, how should I choose what voltage to run on a micro? If a motor is offered in kVs for 2, 3, or 4S, what should I consider when choosing that voltage?
For me, I went 4S a long time ago, mainly because the motors that I wanted to run, the RCX 1304s, the max kV they came in was 5,000. And on 2.5-inch props, you have that's the right kind of total RPM. It also allows you to, for me, it was really nice to only have one parallel board and just have a bunch of XT30 to XT60 adapters. So I could just use my 4S Bardwell board for everything. And the 4S 450 mAh batteries are kind of just light enough. They're just the right weight where pretty much any micros, other than like the sub 100-gram ones, can haul them around without much of a problem. So I just do 4S to keep things simple, to try to have as few variables as possible.
Yeah. I think it used to be that there weren't great choices in gear. There weren't, like, you couldn't just have any motor, any battery, any frame you wanted. But now micros have become so popular, you can kind of just settle on 4S and then just pick, like, there just didn't used to be a 2-inch 4S motor, but now there is. So.
Yep, exactly
Drew
right.
is, for the record, guys, anyone who's watching the stream, Drew is not just rudely being on his phone. He's answering questions in the chat. It looks like he's just ignoring us.
And on that note, I got one from Redbeard. Is a super chat for $5. Yeah. Serious question: is there still a collab with Tommy on the Acrobrat, or is a Rotorite Micro in the works? Brat seems to be out everywhere. So no, Tommy has taken all the Omegod products kind of in-house as his own venture. So he should still be supporting the Brat. I may have heard rumors that there will be a Acrobrat V2 coming soon, but I will leave that to him to talk about it. But the Acrobrat is an amazing frame for what it is, and I look forward to more stuff. And as far as a Rotorite Micro, no, I'd say right now we're really focused on the 5-inch stuff and very excited about doing 5-inch stuff that really supports the DJI system. So that's probably the thing that we're putting most of our focus on.
You mean a 5-inch frame designed around the DJI system might be in the works? Speaking of the DJI system, Preston Millhouse gives $2 and asks, do you think DJI fits in the Remix V2 frame? I can tell you, Cricket is building a Remix V2 downstairs this weekend, and just from the whole thing with the Remix V2 is Tommy kind of made it more compact.
Yeah, he went the wrong way for the DJI.
I'm skeptical it would. Like, did he get a Remix? Did he get a DJI into a Remix?
No, Tommy made a custom Acrobrat to fit the DJI.
Right.
I don't think there's.
I don't think it would fit in a Remix V1. Maybe, but not a Remix V2.
I don't think it's gonna fit.
Yeah.
All right, I have to go back downstairs to do more footage. Thanks, guys. Okay. It was great hanging out. Maybe
Thank you.
Back. I don't know. Whatever.
I mean, I'll be here for another. Okay. Hang on. What's this? Make sure I haven't missed any super chats. Boner FPV, thanks for €2. When are you going to visit Holland? I don't know about that. I don't really like to travel. I have to really be cajoled into traveling. So I've been to Holland. I visited Amsterdam, not any other part of Holland. But I do like Holland. But I don't know when I'll be coming. Kruno, thank you for €5. Please share my Lua script with your audience. Tested the crap out of it on a QX7. Kruno, thanks for your donation. I don't know. I need to contact me privately about your Lua script. Let's see here. Make sure we catch up. Simon Saucy, thanks for $5. So for some reason, my FreeSky XJT module, I'm getting horrid range. Any tips? I mean, if you get really bad range on one module with all your quads, then the module is probably the problem. I would try to swap the module for another one. If you've ever powered the module on with the antenna removed, it is probably damaged. The antenna may be damaged. It's really just a process of trial and error because it's not like you've got like a spectrum analyzer power meter that you could like just test it. You just got to potentially spend $40 on another module and test and see if that fixes it. That's the best I could do. Let's see. Gotta get it asks, why is my throttle response off after programming my ESC, but during programming it works perfect? You're programming your ESC. Are you using a non-BL Heli ESC and you're programming it? That's odd. Okay. I don't know the answer to that. Let's see. Portal FPV
Thank God
cannot.
I wouldn't even know where to begin with that question.
What's that? Go for it.
Thank God you're here. I wouldn't even know how to begin with that question.
I'm not even sure. I'm not 100% sure I understand the question. Portal FPV is having trouble getting his board into DFU mode. I don't know what flight controller you have, Portal FPV. There's two things I can say. If you have an SP Racing F3, that is an older board. It uses a thing called a CP210 chip, and you will never actually see DFU in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, even when you're in bootloader mode. So that may be a problem that you're running into. All modern flight controllers, that's not really going to be an issue, though. If you can't get into DFU mode, hold down the bootloader button. Don't use the command line or the configurator. Hold down the bootloader button and plug it in, and then download and run the Impulse RC Driver Fixer app, and that should do it. Let's see here. OCD FPV in the Discord says, Drew, I've been to race day quads a dozen times. I haven't seen you. What's up with that? He's probably hiding from you. No, who knows? Who knows? Let's see here.
And I misspoke, Joshua. I forgot there is another micromotor that's really smooth. It's the Ladrib's motor, actually. The little 1104, the driblet. That's one of the only other smooth current micromotors.
What size is that motor? And what KVs?
1104 7500, perfect for 3S.
Perfect for 3S 2-inch prop. Okay. Good, good.
Or bi-blade 2.5-inch would work too.
Okay. Yeah, I remember when we were at Quad Camp in Loganville, Georgia. Actually like the second Quad Camp, maybe the first. I think it was the second. The first was in Hesperia at X-Hover. Anyway, we all had just started flying the Diatone GTR 90, and the Baby Hawk 2-inch was the other one I had with me that trip, and that was the one you were at, Ciotti. And we just had so much fun with micros on that trip. And I don't know if the Drew's driblet motor was already in the works, but I remember Drew bought a GTR 90 and really loved it, and I like to think that that was maybe the inspiration for that motor. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That was kind of the quad camp that was my bachelor party, actually, and yeah, what a blast! And that little session afterwards was hysterical.
That was your bachelor party? What do you mean?
Yeah, that was my buddy Brad. I was getting married 3 or 4 months after that, and my buddy Brad said, "Yo, for bachelor party, why don't we go to that quad camp?" I said, "All right." 3 of us went up, and yeah, got an Airbnb and everything.
That's amazing. I didn't know that after all these years.
Yep.
Let's see here. How many hours of flying did it take for you to get halfway decent? Patrick Berry asks. Patrick, I would say you have to define halfway decent for that. I mean, just the sort of minimal ability to keep the quad in the air and make it go where you want to go. I think that some people get there in 5 or 10 hours, and some people it takes longer. I don't know. What's halfway decent? Ahren, what do you think? How many hours to get halfway decent?
My idea of halfway decent is probably insane because I have mental problems. But I mean, for me, I would answer that question with like 100 hours.
Yeah.
But it's all about the simulator. For me, that was like the great equalizer. When I actually started to get in the simulator, I was doing half an hour a night every single night for months, and then that getting decent thing happened pretty quickly and easily at that point.
Yeah. I mean, the sim can get you so far.
Hi,
You guys want to be
everybody.
on Drew's vlog?
Hi.
The sim can get you so far. I think the sim is always a useful tool for trying new stuff, but I think the sim is most useful in the very, very first 5 or 10 hours because here's the thing: you're such a blank slate then. Anything the sim gives you in terms of figuring out how to manage altitude, like how to do a turn, how to move the sticks to do a turn, anything it gives you is more than you had. And if flying a real quad had no downsides, then I'd say, sure, just do the real thing. But with a real quad, even with micros, and micros are the next best thing to a sim. But even with micros, when you crash, you got to get up, walk over, pick it up, put it back down, and fly again. Whereas in a sim, you just hit enter and reset and try again.
Yep.
Yeah,
And you're also more willing to just try insane things like flying backwards, like, just really getting yourself twisted up in the sim, which is really helpful. One of the first things that's really hard to learn is always being able to kind of find level, find the horizon.
yeah.
And man, the sim is just so good for that. You can also tweak your tune, tweak your rates. I mean, there's all kinds of advantages to the simulator. So like when you're starting out, I actually tell people when they want to get started, don't even buy a quad. Buy a QX7 for $100 and buy, a simulator and just spend a bunch of time in there. And if you get frustrated and you hate it, well, you just saved your money on a on a physical
You're
quad that's going to be way more
I
expensive.
100% agree. I 100% agree. That is how I would, and nobody, a lot of people don't want to do that because they're excited to get flying, and I get that. That excitement is important too. I don't want to you have to eat your broccoli before you can have dessert, right? If what you want to do is build a quad and go fly it, hey, that's fine. But the most effective and economical way to get into the hobby is absolutely do just what you said. Get a QX7, or another transmitter, get a jumper T16, whatever transmitter you like, and play on the sim and you spend 10 hours on the sim while you're building your first quad if you want. Or, a good point, maybe you hate it. You go, this sucks. I'm never going to be good at this. And you quit. In which case, you save yourself a lot of money. Yeah, good point. Zidikama wants to know, Ciotti, is there another 2-inch frame you like? The driblet seems a little heavy to me.
So that's such a good question, and in the grand scheme of things, for the most part, with the weight of a frame is going to be directly relational to the amount of protection that it gives you. So like let's go complete opposite ends of the spectrum, right, and talk about the toothpick frames. They give you very little protection, but they're incredibly light, less than 10 grams. So in the air, they're going to be great, right? That we're building things that fly. So if we can save a gram or two, it makes a huge difference. If you can save 10 grams, it's a life-changing difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the air, it's going to be great. But then as soon as you start slamming with it, I mean, it does have the fact that it's lighter to help with the slams. But I mean, when you have exposed motors and exposed cameras and all the other things that it takes to have a really light frame, there's really nothing you can do. So I mean, it depends on what you're looking for, right? If you're looking to be able to crash and have something really durable, you're going to have to go with a heavier frame, and that's kind of where I'm at. Kebab and myself are really good friends. We've been talking for a long time. He's who got me into 5-inch actually, and we talk almost every night, and we kind of represent the two ends of that spectrum, right? I build micros that are specifically meant to carry HD cameras and be as durable as possible, and because of that, my builds are around 120 to 140 grams dry, whereas Kebab is going down the toothpick route where he's like 74 grams all up, but won't carry an HD camera and won't crash nearly as well as my setup. So,
You
different
think
strokes.
that your heavier setup crash is better than Kebab's ultralight setup? I think a lot of people would be surprised and would say the lighter the quad, the better it's going to crash, of course, because it just carries less weight.
Which is very true. It'll definitely hit a lot softer, and that's the setup that I actually had for my first year or so of flying micros. I really went that route, really just lightweight everything, and I was in like I actually had like and I'm doing air quotes so nobody can see, but I had a toothpick like back in 2017. It was an OG white baby hawk that I upgraded, and I got it all the way down to 80 grams. And it's great, but every time I hit fully inverted on the camera, it would blow the camera up. I got to the point where I'd bought about 10 of those replacement AIO cameras, and 20 bucks a piece. It's all right when you buy one, but when you bought 10, it's like, geez,
Yeah,
it's
it adds up.
$200. And that's what led me down this path for frames that protect the camera, and just frames that are never going to break, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think there's a sweet spot for in weight for where you've got enough protection to protect the parts, but then any additional weight just makes it crash worse. And that sweet spot is different in each sort of size class. The optimum weight for durability for a 5-inch is going to be different than for a 3-inch. But I think maybe the point you're making is that when you get down, like on a 2-inch quad, when you get down to kebab's 75 gram weight, you're giving up a lot in terms of durability. And that adding more frame parts to protect it gives you more durability.
Absolutely. Yeah, no free lunches. There's no kind of perfect setup quite yet. But even when there does, Kebab's doing some amazing things to really refine that. And I mean, even when that is like finished, and like really well R&D'd, you're still going to have a camera hanging out there. And
Yeah.
the other thing too, when the HD cameras started to come out, they're not $20, they're $80, right? So putting a tarsier up in a pod that is going to be like the contact point, you're going to break it. I mean, the way that I fly, at least, I'm going to break it. So yeah, I mean, it's all about how you fly. If you want to fly really hard and slam and really push yourself to become a better pilot, I found that having a little bit heavier, more durable setup is really the way to go. And you get some throw with them too, which is nice. No, it's that out.
I don't know about that. Everybody. Oh, there he is. Everybody, Jeff Ward is here looking for his multimeter.
Hi,
What's up,
how's
Jeff?
it going?
Hey, Jeff, say hello to the live stream.
Hello, what do we got going here?
We're just, streaming. We're talking about micros.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it.
Jeff only flies big quads. What's your bandolero weigh all up?
It's heavy. I don't know.
700, 750?
Probably.
No.
I don't watch weight.
Yeah.
I just want the things that I want. I'm not gonna like say, well, I'm just gonna take that off the quad because it'll say, well, if I want it on the quad, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
And I'll rather have it never break than be super light.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anybody would look at your flying and
Yeah.
say that the weight's holding you back.
I mean, for racing, you probably
Yeah.
want light.
Yeah.
But for freestyle, heavy, it might not be bad.
If it means you can get back home.
It can track a little smoother too, I think.
Yeah.
It's a little less like sensitive to the throttle. A super lightweight quad, as you come around a turn, you might bump the throttle and really pop up. Or a heavy one, you're gonna have to be a little more deliberate.
Yeah, especially for guys like us who don't have the reflexes of a Vanover.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta
Cool.
get quads working.
All right. Hey, boom. Hey, don't forget your solder. Here, this is for you. That might not actually be his. I think that belongs to Jamie. I got a couple super chats I want to make sure I get before we get too far behind. Thank you for $2. Nazgul 5, good or hyperlink sellout reviews? I would normally share my screen here and show you guys the Nazgul 5, but I'm not going to try to do that on my live stream when I could screw things up here on my laptop. The iFlight Nazgul 5 is a $179 5-inch ready to fly. It's so tough. I mean, you ask, is it good or are they just sellout reviews? I couldn't say. iFlight what other ready to flies have they done? Have they done a 5-inch ready to fly yet? I mean, that looks good. The frame they've got looks good, but I mean, you can't really tell. I would be, has it got Crossfire on it? No. It looks like a Crossfire. It's got to be a Free Sky. Anyway, it looks good. iFlight has a decent track record of making some good stuff, so I don't know. I haven't tested it, but I wouldn't immediately assume that it's terrible. Success Flight Controller, that's a good one. Zing E Motors, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. We know iFlight makes good motors. Zing E Motors, good budget motors. Success Flight Controller, pretty decent. Normally, what I would say is on a ready to fly $179 Chinese quad that it would have crappy electronics and cheap motors, that $2 motors that they're selling to you for $7. But we know these are quality parts, so yeah. Well, it sounds good. You said wow there. What's wow, Ahren?
I can't believe it has that nice of a lineup of parts. That's really impressive.
Cadix Ratel camera is a great camera. Here's the thing. I mean, for $179, I mean, I wonder if you did a parts breakdown on this of just what you would pay for the parts. How much are you paying for the ready to fly FreeSky XM Plus receiver, RXSR receiver, FPV transmitter is a no-name 025-600. That's decent. I mean, looks like a pretty solid configuration. The only question then is, have they built it well? Have they built it without any flaws? I would probably give this one the benefit of the doubt. I appreciate you pointing it out to me. I'm going to have to get a closer look at this because the $179 freestyle ready to fly bind and fly is pretty good deal. Jonathan K, thanks for $2. What motor would you recommend for the Acrobrat? This is a question that we've kind of answered several times, but go ahead again since Jonathan gave us a super chat. Ahren, real quick, what motor for the Acrobrat?
Love that question. Right now, nothing. You gotta wait. Wait for the iFlight motor that's coming out. It's a 1506, or this prototype motor that I've been testing here, which is a 1507. I can speak to this 1507 being arguably the smoothest micro motor I've ever flown. So I know that this is going to be really good. Hopefully the iFlight motor is just as good because I actually like that 1506 size a little bit better than this 1507. This thing makes a little too much power for me.
You don't like the 14. He actually gave another super chat and asked, how is the Luminaire 1407 for the Acrobrat? You don't actually like the 1407. Why not?
So on a 3-inch prop, the 14 millimeter wide stator, in my opinion, is just not quite enough. It doesn't quite control the prop enough where you have that really crisp, like kind of mind-reading response at middle and then low throttle. I compare it a lot to like a 2207 versus a 2306. 2207s are still fantastic, but they just don't quite have the response in the middle and the low throttle of a 2306, which is what, for me, that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something to kind of read my mind when I'm making those tiny little adjustments to the throttle when flying 2 inches off the ground.
Mr. Zahn in the chat wants to know how heavy are these 1507, 1506 motors we're talking about. Do you know that off the top of your head, or could you drop one on a scale?
Yep, getting a scale out right now. That is an excellent question. I weighed it, but I don't remember.
Okay.
Let's see. My guess is going to be 15. I'm going to guess 15. Let's see. 14.4.
Okay. It's just about 14, 15 grams. OCD FPV in the Discord. Hello, Discord. I haven't forgotten about you. OCD FPV in the Discord says, I have a BN880 GPS on my Remix. I wanted to ask you if I need specific software to configure it, or do I just use Betaflight? OCD FPV, you don't need to do any configuration to these GPS units to get them to work with Betaflight. They should come pre-configured with the things that they need, and you should be able to just connect them to a UART. And then in Betaflight, you need to configure Betaflight to be able to talk to the GPS. Like, for example, you might need to set the baud rate in Betaflight. The other thing you might need to configure is whether it's NMEA or what's the other one? NMEA or uBlocks configuration protocol. So there are a couple Betaflight settings. Betaflight can actually usually auto-detect them all. So you could just try setting baud rate to auto and configuration to auto and see if it works. But you don't need to configure the GPS. There is a piece of software out there, I don't remember the name of it, that you can use to configure the GPS, like what baud rate it uses. But you should be able to just configure Betaflight and use the default settings on the GPS in basically every case. Yeah, that's it. Mino FPV wants to know, is it possible to set OpenTX to read out low battery voltage if I use Crossfire, or does it only work with FreeSky? No, Mino FPV, that works regardless. The receiver protocol brings in the telemetry data, and whether that's FreeSky or Crossfire or FlySky or Spectrum, the Taranis has these telemetry sensors that it's getting data from the receiver. And then you set up the low voltage readout based on this telemetry sensor goes outside of this range. So that'll work with anything. It works with anything. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that the sensors sometimes have different names. So in FreeSky, the battery voltage sensor is called VFAS, VFAS. I have no idea what that means, but it says it's called VFAS. In Crossfire, it's called RXBT, or RXBAT. And what sometimes people do is they see my tutorial for reading out low voltage with FreeSky, and they're looking for VFast, and they're not finding it. They're like, where is it? And they're using Crossfire, so they need to be looking for RxBet. But the bottom line is it will work. Chamber wants to know if I have a tune for the R349. Chamber, I think there was a guy out. Was it Albert Kim? Or maybe it was Nick Burns. I would be checking those guys for a tune for the 349. Ciotti, do you know anybody who has a really great tune for the 349?
There was Andy. I don't know if it was that quad, but very recently there was Andy RC had a tune for a Ready to Fly that was apparently really, really good. I don't know if it's that for that rig, but I'm just a fan of the stock tunes, and then if it's too much on takeoff, drop it down by 10 points on the P gain, 5 on the D gain, and kind of take it from there and build it up from scratch. Somebody I know has an amazing PID Tuning Master Series class. I don't know who it is, though. I forget.
Well, that's me, and I still like that PID Tuning Master class to get just a sense of what the PIDs do. But for tuning micros, it's kind of a whole different ball game. MC's Creations points out that Andy RC, I know Andy RC has a 369 tune that UAV Futures famously complimented him by saying he was the new king of PID tuning.
That's what I was thinking about. That was Yep.
But does he also have a 349 tune? The chat is saying that he does. So Chamber, check out Andy RC to see about his 349 tune. Yeah, Controller Man Dan confirms. Okay, great. And Noisy B says Andy does have a 349 tune, but he got it from somebody else. So credit where credit's due. But anyway, check out Andy RC Chamber. Let's see here. Stan Roland in the chat wants to know best 1103 8000 kV replacement motors for a 2.5-inch GEP RC Phantom. Stan, that's the kind of question that I wouldn't even know where to begin answering, and that's why I'm glad that Ciotti's here. Ciotti, you got anything for us?
Depends on the flying. Is it for a freestyle setup? I would go with the driblet actually motor. Just because of smoothness and it's the right KV. Well, hopefully he's on 3S. If he's on 3S, yeah, it's going to be the right KV. Other than that, so it also kind of depends. The 2.5-inch bi-blade or 2.5-inch tri-blade, because there's a big difference. For 2.5 bi-blade, you can get away with those small motors, those 1103, the 1104s. But for a 2.5-inch tri-blade, which is a lot heavier and more draggy of a prop, I actually prefer a 1304 motor or a 1206 motor. GEP RC makes a 1206 that's great. RCX and Spintech make 1304s that are fantastic. That'll have enough extra torque to really boss around that 2.5-inch prop that's a little heavier, 3-blade.
Okay, great answer. Thank you. And I'm just going to remind you guys, the super chats have tapered off a little bit. I'm going to remind you that the super chats from this live stream are going to Ciotti as just a way of thanking him for his time and all the amazing amount of knowledge he brings to the table. If he gives you an answer like that and that helps you make the right decision, throw a couple bucks his way via super chat right here on the stream. And I don't normally push the super chats quite as hard, but I definitely want to make sure he feels appreciated. Let's see.
I feel appreciated just having you as a friend, Joshua.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. But yeah, no.
I grab a tissue, wipe all the brown off my nose.
Oh, thank you. Sean Hale says, "What microframe am I going to build my 3-inch on, Sean?" I'm going to be using the Acrobrat. I am, as you probably know, more of a freestyle pilot than a racer, and so when I asked Ciotti what is a really good 3-inch freestyle focused frame, he didn't hesitate. He said, "You got to do the Acrobrat." So let's see.
Yeah, the clean dirty setup. I mean, if you're going to run HD and you want to build a 3-inch rig, there's no question. I mean, it just does a better job at getting clean video. It's the only 3-inch frame I've found that you can bend a prop and then turtle mode it back over, and it doesn't completely wreck the footage. It also has the extra weight, which gives it a little bit more throw and makes it feel like more of a bigger rig. So it kind of helps. It's kind of hard switching between a 5-inch rig and a micro rig. They fly so different. So
they do.
I personally try to make my micro rigs fly more like 5-inch rigs, and a part of that is adding weight.
Yeah, it's counterintuitively. Priyabrata Saha, thank you for 20, I think rupees. No comment, just a call out. Jonathan K, thanks for $2. He says thanks for the answers to the questions about the Acrobrat. And Motorsport APS, thanks for £5. Just says respect. Daniel Robinson asks in the chat, I have a Baby Hawk R Pro 2.5. The ESC is trashed. Yeah, Daniel, I love almost all of Emax's ready to flies, but I feel like they really missed the mark with the Baby Hawk R Pro 2.5. They may have fixed it by now, but the one I got, it smoked the ESC, the video transmitter was messed up, and it had all kinds of problems with gyro noise, which I think was because the screws. I actually handed it off to a local Knoxville guy who was really big in micros, and he said that he thought the screws were too tight, and it was like removing the soft mounting. But I just had nothing but trouble with that thing, and I talked to other people who also had similar problems. I hope they fixed it, but you say your ESC is trash. I have to say that also happened to me. Any experience with the Baby Hawk R Pro 2.5-inch, Ciotti?
I think that's got the Magnum stack in it, which I have not had any experience with, but luckily there is a really inexpensive 20x20 ESC that I assume will work with the flight controller from that Magnum stack. Maybe somebody can back me up on that, but there's a $30 SpeedX 20 amp 20x20 ESC that I have never been able to blow up.
That's
and
good.
I'm going to drop a link to it
Yeah.
in the chat in a second.
I think I marked you as a moderator, so I think it'll let you drop the link. He wants
Awesome.
to.
I've been
He
dropping
wants.
links for a while. So.
Oh, good. He wants to know if he can go with the new Mini Magnum 2.5 f4 BLHeli 3235 amp from Emax. Emax RS 1408 performance brushless motor 2300 kV. I guess he just wants to swap the whole stack for the new Mini Magnum.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it'll fit in the frame, that should absolutely work. I can't necessarily recommend those motors. I'm not a big fan of 1408s because I'm not a racer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you should be able to.
I mean, that's what's on there.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah,
right,
it's the ready to fly. So that's what's on there. That's what he's going. I think he just wants to.
Ready to fly knowledge up.
Yeah. So the Mini Magnum, that's a 20mm stack that'll go in there, right? You would think.
Correct. Yeah, that's Emax's kind of all-in-one. Really, really well made. I'm surprised that the ESC went.
Yeah, I don't know what it was about that setup. I mean, normally Emax has really solid stuff. I just had bad luck with it. We also smoked an ESC on mine, so. But yeah, as long as it fits, I think it. I mean, the 35 amp ESC is going to be fine with those motors, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've run 1408s on a 20 amp ESC hard, and it's been totally fine.
Yeah. Let's see. Slaughter in the Discord says I have a TBS 00V2. I don't have any OSD cable. There's nothing to be found on how to make one. Do you know how? Slaughter, the 00, the TBS cameras. Hang on. Let me just refresh my memory. Is it the V2? Did you say? Hang on. Yeah, it says the V2. I got to get a look at that camera real quick. And again, I would normally share my screen, but because we're on the laptop today, we're in the field. I'm going to not risk it. Yeah, so the 00 camera, the video, the OSD is not a separate cable. It's built in. It's a 4-wire cable, and it's built into the plug. I would have to go back to TBS on that one and ask them how to build or buy a joystick cable for the 00. Let's see. Let me get my chats back to where they were. Okay. Brian Chambers,
Looks like
thanks.
I lied. That SpeedX 20 amp ESC is discontinued.
Oh no! Oh no! What will you
Luckily,
do?
I've got a bunch of them that still work. You pay more for the 32-bit version, the GS25.
Oh, okay.
Just $45, and is a good idea anyway. With RPM filtering coming, I think that's going to be a game changer for micros. So it'd be nice to have that 32-bit ESC.
Well, let's talk about that because there was a question earlier about RPM filtering. So RPM filtering, in case you don't know, is a Betaflight 4.1 feature. It's coming in Betaflight 4.1. And what it does is it lets the ESC communicate the motor RPM directly to the flight controller in very fast, basically real time. And that's important because vibration is a big source of performance issues, video noise, hot motors, bad flying, and normally what we do is we use the gyro to detect the vibration that the motors are making, and then we try and filter out that vibration. But the problem with that is that there's some delay there. And by getting the ESC to communicate the motor RPM directly to the flight controller in real time, the filtering can dynamically target those frequencies, be much more effective with much lower latency. So that's RPM filtering. Ahren, what is your opinion? Do you have any thoughts about RPM filtering specifically as it applies to micros?
I really truly think it's going to be a game changer. Last I read, there's either 3 or 4 individual filters per motor per. So I mean, we're talking. So you bend a prop, and one of those filters is going to be able to isolate the specific vibration frequency that prop is generating, and try to squash that. And then you bend the bell, and that's going to have a different frequency. So it's really, in my eyes, going to be able to get rid of a lot of the problems that the micros have because of the fact that these are dynamic filters, right? Like not all, but let's say 98% of the R&D that's gone into Betaflight has been for 5-inch rigs. So a lot of the filters and a lot of the tech that's gone into it is specifically targeting the vibrations that happen on a 200 plus millimeter frame with 5-inch props with 23, 22, whatever motors. So micros have always been a challenge in that respect because everything happens at a higher frequency and a little bit differently. And the RPM filters, I think, are really going to be the first time that we get to see what a micro can do when properly filtered.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That a lot of the development of Betaflight, the default filter settings, it's the majority of it is on larger quads, 5-inch, 4-inch, probably 5-inch, and the micro tuners then have to basically develop their own defaults for their specific setups, and it's a lot of work. And having the dynamic filters just target those frequencies has a lot of potential to make a big improvement.
Yeah, I've seen that in Betaflight 4.0 actually. The new dynamic notch filter is just incredible at finding the actual vibrations that are going on. Being able to set it, default it's set to automatic, but I actually set it to high so that it really targets the high frequencies. I mean, you look at like a 2.5-inch rig of mine that's on 5,000 kV motors 4S, and you compare that to my 5-inch rigs that are at 2,400 kV 4S. I mean, the difference in frequencies is tremendous, almost double. Well, actually, wait, more than double now that I do the maths. So, yeah, should be. I'm really interested. I've stopped messing with dev and early firmwares from a while ago from getting hit on my fingers a couple times by micros with props, so I wait for official releases. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Steve in the Discord chat, Steve Maslick points out that RPM filter does work on BLHeli S. There's a new thing, actually. UAV Tech is the name of the YouTube channel. He just released a video about it. The Betaflight developer named Joe Lucid has been working on a new build of BLHeli S. One of the advantages of BLHeli S that BLHeli 32 doesn't have is that BLHeli S is open source. With BLHeli 32, the devs took it closed source for reasons. But Joe Lucid has been working on the open source BLHeli S, and he has developed a framework that lets BLHeli S basically take plugins. And one of the plugins that he developed is an RPM filtering plugin. So basically, Joe Lucid did all the work to make RPM filtering available to BLHeli S users. When it was, the BLHeli devs only made it available to BLHeli 32 users. If you have BLHeli SESCs that you love, like Ciotti here has his SpeedX BLHeli S, or if there's some other reason why, like some people have really objected to BLHeli 32 going closed source, and they were just like, forget it, I'm not using it. There are also some ready-to-flies that come with BLHeli SESCs, specifically because them being open source means that they don't have to actually pay the BLHeli devs to use the firmware. So if you've got any BLHeli SESCs and you want to use RPM filtering, thanks to Joe Lucid, you will be able to do that. Yeah, so that's exciting news.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got here. Checking out the chat here, looking for questions. A lot of discussion here. Thanks to everybody in the chat who is helping to answer questions. Obviously, I can't
Yeah, some
answer
really
every
good stuff
single
going
one
on in
of
the
them.
chat. Yeah.
Daniel Robinson points out the biggest problem I had with the Baby Hawk was motor twitch, and I had to loosen the screws, and it was fixed. And yeah, that's what I talked about. I was getting gyro twitches as if there was too much vibration getting to the flight controller, and by loosening the stack screws just a little bit, it lets the gummies relax and do their soft mounting job. So yeah, I wonder if that was recently, Daniel. If it was recently, it suggests the problem still exists on that quad. Unfortunately, that's too bad. Okay. Brian Chambers, thanks for $8. Brian is a newbie, soaking up all the good information. Thank you. P Peterm77, thank you for 22 Norwegian kroners. Thank you. Noah Reinhardt, thanks for $5. Noah says you're my hero, Aaron. Thank you. $5. You're his hero. That's nice.
Noah's a really good friend of mine. He's just saying that.
He doesn't mean it. You're not really his hero. What he actually said was, "You're my hero, Aaron." He meant it sarcastically. Blizzard FPV gives $5 and asks, "What's the best thing to do with 10 JB flight controllers? All of them have issues with the 5-volt pad." Blizzard, if you're having any hardware issues with a JB flight controller, the place to contact is support@racedayquads.com. Race Day Quad, even if you didn't buy it at Race Day Quads because like you're in Canada and you bought it from a local retailer, go to support@racedayquads.com because they are actually the manufacturer. Like Race Day Quads doesn't literally own the factory, but they're the sort of U.S. face of the manufacturing, and we do the development in-house on the JB flight controller. So if you have any hardware issue, that's the place to go. If you've got bad boards and it's our fault that they're bad, they'll replace them. There's a warranty on them, but they'll have to make that determination individually for you. But that's what you should do. Reaper X says, "Tell Drib to quit hogging the bandwidth." I hope that the stream isn't stuttering and buffering. I don't know what to do about that. Uh-oh, says the studio is breaking down. Hold on. Hey! Stop uploading things! I'm streaming! Well, hopefully that worked. All right, well, that's the thing.
Spats is in the chat, Joshua. I'm elicited flash.
Stream status is okay. Somebody's uploading stuff. That's too bad. Well, that's life. What are you going to do? Hopefully it settles in pretty soon. Oh, there we go. That fixed it. Okay. Nick Westernick. Let's talk about the news of the day. I didn't start with news of the day because I started a little late and I wanted to jump in. But Nick Westernick wants to know any news about the new TBS module. So the new TBS Fusion module. Everybody's very excited about it because TBS is just such a big player in this industry, and they make some very interesting and exciting products like the TBS Unified Video Transmitter, which many consider to be the best video transmitter you could buy, and the TBS Crossfire, which many people consider to be the best radio link you can get. So when TBS says they're coming out with a new module, people are very excited and interested. They just announced in their live stream that they're pushing back the release. And I'm not sure when they very first said the module would be coming out, but it's been pushed back. And I have to say, I'm not at all surprised because if you look at the history of high-end receiver modules, like the Clearview module, like the Rapid Fire module, and, well, that's basically it. I guess the TrueDX. They pretty much all they had problems right out the gate. Clearview didn't hit its first delivery by a long time, and when they did, it had manufacturing issues, and they actually had to recall and replace. Rapid Fire, as good as Rapid Fire is today, and it is very good, when it first came out, it had some issues. It was pretty good, but it was not perfect. It had some issues, and they've continued to make it better. So when I heard that TBS was going to release this Fusion module, my first thought was the first generation is going to have a problem. And that some people took that as me being a hater against TBS. Couldn't be further from the truth. TBS makes great hardware. If anybody could pull this off, it's them. But nobody, Clearview makes great hardware. Immersion RC makes great hardware. So the fact that I just think that it's they were gonna, I just think it's gonna happen. So the fact that they pushed it back, not a surprise to me. I think it was inevitable that they were going to miss their delivery date, and I still think it's likely that when they finally do release it, that it'll have some problem that nobody anticipated. That is not a slam on them. That's just a testament to how difficult what they're trying to do is. So, the real thing about it that I think is interesting is TBS has a very interesting strategy of trying to make the best performing hardware they can, but their backup plan is that they've got this Crossfire ecosystem. So if you look at the TBS Unify, the TBS Evo VTX, is it the best video transmitter you could possibly use? I don't care, because it's got the built-in OSD, which means that if I have a KISS flight controller and I want to have an OSD, I don't have to deal with MWOSD. I put the TBS Evo in there, and haha, oh yeah, I got that. And the TBS Fusion module is going to have this integration where it talks to the Crossfire receiver and the VTX, and it can change channels when the VTX changes channels automatically. And I don't know. So the fact that it's got all these extra features means that even if it's not the best performing module, maybe it's still worth looking at. The other thing that's interesting, Fatshark Bitefrost. Fatshark announced that they were basically postponing Bitefrost. I don't even think they gave a time frame. But they said basically they looked at the DJI system in-house, and they decided that their Bitefrost is Fatshark's high-definition competitor to DJI. And they basically said, we think we're better than analog, but we're not as good as DJI. And we're going back to the drawing board, and we're going to try and make it better. So if when you heard the Bitefrost announcement, you went, Bitefrost's coming soon. No. So, yeah. And I can't say that I'm very surprised about that either. It felt to me, the DJI system came out, and like the very next day, Fatshark contacted me and other people, and they made a public announcement saying, we've been working on Bitefrost for a while. We're going to have it in reviewers' hands in 2 weeks. And I thought, that feels like you're maybe jumping the gun just a little bit. Like DJI has made this big splash, and you're worried that if you don't get on the bandwagon, that you're going to miss out. And the thing is, high-definition digital FPV is so freaking difficult that anybody who is like rushing, they're going to screw it up. It's not going to be good. You've got to get it right. So Bitefrost is delayed indefinitely. And I hate to say it, maybe forever. What if Bitefrost takes 6 months or 9 months to get to where it needs to be? DJI now has a 6 or 9 month head start. And I know that a lot of people don't want to hear this, but the DJI system is good. There are reasons to dislike DJI as a company. There are reasons to be annoyed that the DJI system isn't what you wanted it to be. Like, why doesn't it have an analog receiver in it? I wanted it to have an analog receiver. But the system as it is very freaking good, and it will only get better in the next 6 or 9 months. I think Fatshark is a very, very anybody who's going to release a digital high-definition system has a very, very challenging road ahead of them, and DJI now has a head start. There we go. Okay. Back to the question. Back to the questions. Let's see what we can do. How's the stream looking? Is the stream looking better now? Is it looking good? Ahren went quiet. I paused there in the middle of my talking about the Fusion. I zone. You may have seen me zone out. It's because I noticed that Ahren has put himself on mute, and I thought, did my microphone stop working? And the whole chat is full of people going, "We can't hear you," and I had to look down real quick and check if you guys were hearing me. Lance Flagg wants to know if I think the TBS module is going to operate the same as Rapid Fire. Lance, I'm looking forward to getting the TBS Fusion module. I have been talking to Paul Cruz, who's the guy I did that Rapid Fire analysis video with, and he's going to be putting it on his oscilloscope and testing it to see if it does sync reconstruction and so forth, similar to Rapid Fire. I have no doubt that it will perform well. I don't think TBS would release it if it didn't perform well. I expect that when it releases, it will have at least one showstopper issue that they go, oh crap, and they have to scramble to fix it. But I expect it will perform well regardless. Let's see here. Is XJet here, Mike Hogue asks? Oh, that would be cool. Let's see here. UAV Tech is here. Yeah, UAV Tech is here. Chatting? Let's see, who else is here? XJet. Is he really here? Oh, wow. XJet is in the chat. That's Bruce Simpson. He has a YouTube channel, XJet, and also RC model reviews. Bruce is, along with Flight Test and Rotor Riot, one of the channels I watched when I was coming up in FPV. So it's not to make him feel weird, but it's quite an honor to have him in my stream. He says, when DJI get the analog side sorted, they will be a very competitive product. They're working on it. I think Bruce is referring to is that he dropped off the stream. Hang on one second, guys. Let's get Ciotti back on the stream. He's the whole reason we're here. Okay, calling Ciotti now. 1 second, guys.
All right, I'm here.
Hey, you're back. I thought you put yourself on mute while I was doing my little diatribe about the TBS Fusion. So
I kept trying to jump in and ask you if you know how long TBS has been working on it.
I don't know. I don't get a lot of insight into the behind the scenes at TBS.
Which is a loaded question, admittedly.
Do you know?
I don't know, but I'm very curious because I do know how long Immersion worked on the Rapid Fire for.
These things take a lot of work. XJet was, we're talking about the analog side of the DJI goggles. The DJI goggles have an AV input for analog receivers. Some people have reported that it has a little more latency than you would like. So that may be, I think XJet tested that. Let's see here. Ciotti is back. Oh, hang on. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah, it jumped over to my phone for a second. Yeah. Let's see here. Matthew Walsh is going to take care of XJet's broken glasses. That's nice. Yep. Take it easy, guys. We're back. We are back, right? Yeah.
Where's all the sub 250 gram questions? I think those.
Yeah, we've lost. That's a good point. We've
strict guidelines, right?
Okay, guys. Let's Ciotti is our special guest. So let's talk sub 250 gram because we were here to talk about micros. Then I started talking about the Fusion. So what do we got for sub 250? Questions
I would
about
think a lot of the guys in Europe would be like really hunting down that 249 gram all up weight, or is it just not a big deal over there?
I mean, I do know that there's places in Europe where it's not legal to basically fly FPV at all, and people do it. So there is some sort of flouting of the law. But I know a lot of people are very, very concerned with that 250 gram limit in a lot of places.
Thank goodness for the dual lens setups like the Tarsier and the Runcam that's coming.
Yeah, Steve Mann points out that in the UK, even if you're under 250 grams, you have a speed limit of 40 miles an hour. How are they going to test that? Like, if they see you going over 40 miles an hour, you get a ticket? I don't even know. Reaper X says, all right, well, they'll throw it back at you, Ciotti. He's throwing it back to you. What is your sub 250 build? What's your best sub 250 build?
Acrobrat for sure. It hits that number pretty much perfectly you got to work a little bit at it. You can't throw a ton of TPU at it. That'll definitely put you over 250. But like a 4S 650 mAh battery, and then some light-ish motors like these 1506s, hopefully, that are coming. And then a single board. Hopefully the run cam split camera is going to be a single board. That'll save a little bit of weight there too. Yeah, you can hit it right on the nose at that 250 number. Other than that, there are some tiny little alien style frames coming from Rotorius, who is my frame sponsor, who is actually over in Europe. That will get you way below that number. I've got 2 setups right now with HD cams, one with a Tarsier, one with a Turtle. They both are 140 dry, so I have a big choice of batteries that I can run on those 2 guys, and they fly just like the Acrobrat, a little bit lighter. The only thing they don't do is deal with vibrations quite as well, because they're not clean, dirty setups. But if you keep clean motors and props on them, you get some great HD video out of them.
Yeah, okay. We should try to make my Acrobrat build. In case you guys didn't catch it, I'm going to be doing an Acrobrat build with the careful advice of Ciotti, as opposed to what I normally do, which is just dive in, try it, and screw it up, and then everybody gets mad at me. I know. Part of being, I like to say that part of being smart is knowing when you're dumb. And then relying, people ask me, how did you learn all this stuff? Well, I listened to people who are smarter than me, and I just soaked it all up, and then, so that, 2 years, maybe I'll be, everything Ahren knows, and I won't need him anymore. But until then,
Kruger is real.
Until then. No. Maybe we should try to make my Acrobrat build be a sub 250, just sort of it'd be easy to go, screw it. We live in the land of the free, and we don't have that limit, but I'm sure a lot of people would appreciate that.
And it's actually a really good number. 250 is a really, really good all-up weight for a 3-inch prop. It's when you go a lot heavier than 250, it starts to really fall out of the sky like a sack of hammers when you jump off the throttle. Mm-hmm. When you go less than 250, you sacrifice a little bit of the throw. So that's a really good number.
It's a good number in terms of performance. But personally, I don't feel like it's a great number in terms of regulation. I really wish that the number was more like a kilogram or maybe 2 kilograms. Because like if you look at something like a 5-inch quad and you ask how should this be regulated, man, I guess they were just trying to get down to like toy grade. But it bugs the heck out of me that in the US at least, the regulations go 250 grams, 55 pounds. And I'm like, you're not going to draw a line anywhere in between those? No. I can have a 54-pound UAV that's regulated the same as a 251-gram UAV. I don't buy it. Anyway.
That's true. I never thought about it from that perspective. I always just kind of thought about what's the maximum possible weight at 60 miles an hour that can hit someone in the head, and will they die or not?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Well, 250 grams feels about right. Maybe a little less for that.
So. Yeah, I've hit myself hard with 200-gram rigs, and it's fine. Not in the face, but...
Yeah. Steve Maslick wants to know, what stack would you recommend for a sub 250-gram build?
So I'm kind of boring on stacks. I run the same exact ESC over and over and over again, which used to be SpeedX's 20 amp, but now that that's gone, I've been running their 32-bit 25 amp, the IS-25, and I've yet to blow up one of these SpeedX ESCs. I actually have I have all of my blown up 20 by 20 ESCs like chained together on this necklace that I'm building for the next Rampage. I've got to have at least 10 of them. So I mean, plenty of 20 by 20 ESCs are fraught with magic speed, and the SpeedXs just don't seem to be. So definitely the GS25 for the ESC. It also puts the positive and negative battery leads in a really interesting spot, kind of in the middle on the bottom, which actually works out really well for micro builds. And then for the flight controller, there's a couple really good ones. My old standby has been the Maytech F411, F like Frank 411. That thing is incredible.
Is that a 20 millimeter? That's a 36.
20 by 20.
Oh, it is 20.
They make they have 2 products they call the 411. One of them's 30 by 30, one of them's 20 by 20. I don't understand it, but Yeah, that's been my old standby, but it's only an F4. So lately, with RPM filtering coming, I've moved up to F7s, which Maytech doesn't have in 20 by 20 yet. So I've been doing the Talon F7s, and they've been fantastic. So I'm a big fan.
The problem with 20 millimeter F7s is the gosh dang chip is almost as big as the freaking board. Like you look at
Yeah.
them and it's like a postage stamp on a slightly bigger piece of paper with a whole bunch of little tiny resistors and capacitors all around it. It's pretty
Yep, and
tricky.
that's what I really like about the Talons is that even with that, they've managed to get everything else on the board. OSD, even black box. The thing
Wow.
that kills me about the Maytech is there's no black box, and I get it. They sacrificed it because it's a tiny little, not much real estate. But the Talon, they somehow have like everything in there, lots of UARTs. Really, really impressive board.
I feel obligated to point out that for my Acrobat build, at least the first time out the gate, I was really looking for an integrated sort of stack with. I think the one that we're going with it actually has ESC flight controller and VTX, and that is the iFlight stack. iFlight is actually going to be sending that. They're also sponsoring the motors for the build. They are going to be having some 1506. These motors aren't out yet, but if you're waiting for a 1506 motor, iFlight's going to be coming out with one. And so I'm looking forward to trying that stack out. I do agree with you, Ciotti, that the single biggest concern with a 4-in-1 ESC is reliability. It's got to be the fact, and this is true for 36 millimeter ones, but especially true for 20 millimeter ones, where everything is smaller, closer together, the FETs are smaller. They just have reliability issues, and when you smoke one, you're out $60 instead of $15. That's the number
Absolutely.
one thing I look for in a 4-in-1 is I can run it without it smoking.
And they're just so annoying to have to replace too.
Yeah. So I hope that the iFlight, I mean, obviously you can't know from one example, but I hope that the iFlight lives up to it. But I am looking forward to putting that in this Acrobat build I'm going to be doing. We have a couple super chats coming in. Chase Conway, thank you for $2, wants to know, can you enter standard races with a 4S 3-inch? Yeah, the races, I mean, it obviously depends on the race format. Every race has its own rules, but in general, like multi-GP races don't do size classes as far as I know. You can run a 3-inch in a race. You can run a 4S, you can run a 6S. They don't really limit it that way. At the end of the day, whatever you think will get you around the track the fastest, you can run. And Chance Conway, if you're talking, probably you're not like talking about a pro level nationals level race. If you're just going to your local flight club and they're putting on a race, don't even hesitate. Chances are excellent that there's nothing at stake and everybody's just having fun, and you could just show up and race the course. Definitely, if you've got your 3-inch, take it out there, race, have fun, get the racing experience. Hopefully, your flight club is not hard asses about it and going to be jerks about it. Okay, you can win. You can win races against 5-inch quads with a 3-inch. Absolutely, especially because a lot of the guys out there flying 5 inches maybe aren't as good a pilot as you. You know, but a 3-inch can be really fast depending on the course.
And a lot of local races tend to be smaller and more technical, which is micro territory.
Absolutely. I mean, we still don't see top pilots choosing to fly 4-inch or 3-inch, no matter how technical the course is. They're still flying 5-inch, mostly, exclusively.
Until that octo comes out.
That 3-inch octa, yeah, that's true. That's true. We tested that. Marley Lepo, thanks for 20 Norwegian kroners. No question, just what's up? Okay, fine. Lawrence Flagg, thanks for $5. Yeah, that's all the super chats. We're caught up now. Let's see here. Steve Maslick again says, sub 250 seems twitchy with my 5-inch rates and Betaflight tune. Any suggestions outside of just playing with numbers and testing? Any input there, Ciotti?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the twitchiness that he's referring to is basically just the lightness, right? Less weight on the arms, less weight in the whole system needed to move around. I personally, I know exactly what he's saying. I tune that out with feed forward. I run very, very low to non-existent feed forward on my micros, all the way down to 0 on roll. Sometimes I'll put 5 or 10 in on pitch just because that axis has a little bit more weight. And then the yaw, I kind of tune in a weird way with a specific move that I do. But yeah, that is for sure a thing. Just so much less weight to move is just going to kind of give you that more twitchiness feel. It's going to be a great way for you to kind of train your thumbs, right? It's kind of swinging with a weighted bat to really get you used to being as smooth as possible. And then if you don't want to tune it out with feet forward, there's also RC smoothing that you can adjust in the CLI to add a little bit of damping there.
Interesting.
With both of these methods, you're introducing latency, but smoothness is king in my opinion.
Yes, and Steve is no stranger to concepts like RC smoothing and feed forward, so I'm sure he soaked all that up, and we'll take it and run with it. Steve knows a thing or two about tuning. ZD Kama, thank you for $5 in the super chat. ZD Kama wants to know about running a Tarsier, a split style camera for high def on an Acrobrat versus something like a GoPro Session. Can you run a session on a 3-inch, and if so, why don't you?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. I actually just got, I think on last week's stream, I still had the session mount on my Acrobrat, actually. Now, today, as I speak right now, it's all torn apart on my desk to do some things and to get that mount off of there. But for the Cinewhoop type stuff, it's a heck of a frame to drag a session or even a Hero 7 around because it has that clean dirty setup. You're gonna put that that GoPro mount up on the clean plate, the center section. So it's going to benefit from that. It's also adding mass to the clean plate, which is going to help the whole system even more. Personally,
Uh-oh. I lost him. Oh, no. Okay. He just dropped out. Let's check my stream here real quick. I'm still talking. You guys still hear me. You just don't hear him. Uh-oh. I'm going to try and call him back. He's going to call me in a minute and be like, oh, hey, I lost you. Let's try and call him back real quick.
sorry about that. I have no idea what happens.
No problem. You were just saying personally, I...
Is that what
That's where we lost you.
Great
Personally.
part to lose me. So yeah, personally, I do not like the way that all that weight feels, but for a Cinewhoop, I get it. It works. That's not my thing. I don't have the patience for it, but it'll absolutely do it. So the previous setup that I had was Emax 1606s, which make huge power, the 4000 kV ones on 4S, and it moved that session around pretty darn good. I think the total weight was way over 300 grams. And it worked really well. Did you catch any of what I said about the clean plate adding mass?
Yeah, we got that. We got that. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, so it'll definitely do it. But I got to be honest, the Tarsier is pretty spectacular, and the RunCam one that's coming out that's going to have an M12 lens for the HD is man, that should be even better. So you might not need to, because it really with a GoPro on top of a 3-inch. It's not a freestyle rig anymore. It is a Cinewhoop, period.
Yeah. And we've talked in the previous live stream about how if what you're doing is Cinewhoop style stuff, where you're focusing on more like traditional camera moves, tracking shots, like panning shots and so forth, having a heavier quad can be better because it kind of damps down the innate agility of the 3-inch or the whoop style quad. So for the Cinewhoop, you might like to go with a GoPro on a 3-inch. You're going to be hovering at 55% throttle, but who cares? You're not power looping it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. We are coming close to the end of the stream. It's just coming up on 3 o'clock now. We're going to go a little bit longer because we did start the stream a little late. And I try to give you guys about 2 hours. I do want to remind you that all of the Super Chat donations from this live stream are going to go to Ciotti as a way of thanking him for for spending some time with us. So if you were holding out to the end, or if you just want to jump in here at the end, oftentimes the super chats trail off at the end. If you guys, anybody out there wants to throw him a donation, now is the time to do it. We are coming to the end. License to Drive says, I don't like the split HD footage because they all artificially oversharpen the picture, but not the Tarsier, which is why I bought one. Yeah. Have you had that experience as well, Ciotti?
Yeah, very much so. There's all kinds of weird stuff that they do. I just 2 days ago, I guess, I just finished up a build with a turtle in it, and it's funny. I've been flying the Tarsier for a while. I kind of forgot how much better that was, let's say, than the turtle. I don't want to bash the turtle because it was good when it came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, those OG ones were they had all kinds of artifacts and strange things going on. The Tarsier has really been like just incredible. I don't necessarily recommend the Tarsier right now because it's like a prototype product almost. There's a bunch of really annoying problems with it. But I'm sure the V2 will be fantastic.
For the V2 Tarsier, that's the one we want. I don't know why they don't give us more ability to tweak things like brightness, contrast, saturation, and especially sharpness in these cameras. Yeah. Why? I mean, it seems like it's just software. You should be able to do it.
Well, what's funny is Caddx has a tendency to do that with software updates. The Tarsier is a perfect example. So I have like an outdated version of it that doesn't have all these new resolutions. If I'm like 2 or 3 revisions behind on the software, they've introduced new resolutions, even they put SuperView. They put their version of SuperView in through a firmware update. I was kind of blown away by that.
Can they do? Are they not going to get sued by GoPro for that? I guess not. I don't know.
It's their own version that doesn't work really well, so I guess not.
Okay. Okay, well, great. Oh, woo, off the hook then. License to Drive says the 4.3 high-def recording of the Tarsier isn't centered properly. Is that true? Is that true? Wow.
I didn't notice that. I've been shooting it in 4x3 and then doing artificial SuperView in Premiere. I didn't notice that, but that doesn't mean it's not true.
How far off is it, License to Drive? Maybe we'll have to check that. Yeah, got a couple. Thank you guys for all the donations. I know Ciotti will appreciate them.
Yeah, thank you guys. Certainly, that's huge. It's going to all go right back into more micro testing.
There you go. I certainly appreciate you being here, dude. I got to tell you guys, way back when, the very first set of videos that I released that started getting me some subscribers was I wanted to learn about black box logging and how black box worked and analyzing PIDs. So I asked people to send me their black box logs, just so I could learn from them. And I started making videos about that. And this is a kind of the same thing. You know, micros are getting so popular. When people first, there was a time when all micros were crappy. And then micros started getting good. And to my mind, that was around the time of the GT90 and the Baby Hawk 2-inch. That was, and I know that you guys who are big in the micro community were flying good micros 6 months or a year before that. But that was the first time when, from an outsider's perspective, I went, whoa, these micros are pretty good. And now, like, they're just blowing up, especially with the 250 gram regulations going on around the world. A lot of people flying in cities who maybe don't have the ability to just go rip a 5-inch wherever. It's too big to ignore. And I've gone, oh, I need to learn more about this stuff because people ask me, what motors should I get? And I'm like, I don't even know where to start. And that's actually the real reason why you're here, Ciotti. I mean, not that I enjoy spending time with you, talking, chatting, whatever. But I want to learn more about this stuff. And so I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so true. We've said it a couple times, but micros are so sensitive to setup. I mean, everything is scaled down. You know, a couple grams make a big difference because they're a much bigger percentage of the total weight of the system. So yeah, I mean, there was a time where it was really rough, and absolutely micros flew like junk. But now that we're starting to figure out which motors match well with which props, and you know, some of the actual flight controllers and ESCs shrinking down is also obviously helping. It's a really cool time for micros.
Yeah, it is. Well, I hope you mentioned maybe I should do a stream of my own. And I was like, well, you're welcome to come on mine. I was hoping you'd come back. If you do start doing micro-focused streams, we'll definitely let everybody know when those are going to be. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot of people asking. Well, you probably the same 10 questions over and over again, but it'll be fun.
Well, as a thank you to everybody that donated, I'll do a stream right after this. So if anybody
Oh,
has
wow. Okay.
micro questions,
Well, go
I'm
ahead.
starting to turn the lights on. I'll point the camera at myself for a change.
Yeah, go ahead and paste that link in the stream. Ciotti is Ciotti FPV, Ciotti. You've seen his username down in the chat, but Ciotti FPV on YouTube, and he's going to be streaming as soon as we wrap up here. That's great. So I guess I will let you go ahead and get to that, and I will go back and finish recording Rotor Ride episodes, which is what I'm doing this. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you to my patrons in the Discord for your questions and your support. As a small reminder, you can support me via Patreon. Down, link in the video description. For a couple bucks a month, you get access to my Discord server, and you can hang out and chat with me there. Thanks to everybody who donated to Ciotti in the Super Chat, and just everybody who is here asking and answering questions in the chat. You guys are awesome. About micro builds. If you, I don't know, if you have more questions about micros, get on over to Ciotti's YouTube channel, Ciotti FPV. Ciotti, did you paste the link?
I just posted a link to my channel, so
okay.
Yeah, I gotta get it.
Or just Google Ciotti FPV. Or just click his username right here in the chat. It should take, I don't know. But get on over there. He's going to stream for a little while longer and answer more questions. So awesome. But we're going to wrap this stream up today. Thank you guys so much. My next stream will be Monday, tomorrow at 8 p.m. in the evening. Pretty sure. Last week I canceled the Sunday stream because I was driving. I think by 8 p.m. I probably will be done with anything I'm doing for Rotor Ride, I hope. So we'll be back tomorrow at 8 p.m. for another stream. But that's going to do it for today. We are out of here. Happy flying, everybody. See you later, Ciotti. Have a good stream,
See you
dude.
later. Thanks, everybody.
All right, man.